Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Well, everyone's a special guest because they take a moment to join me on my show. I'm joined with the Dean of Mason Korea, Dean Joshua Park. Now, if you're a listener of the show, you know that I've done this Dean mini-series with other leaders at George Mason, and I actually had the interim Dean, Dr. Shannon Davis, on the podcast while they were, I guess, figuring out who's going to be the new dean. But now we got the new dean, who is Dean Joshua Park. And I just want to before I even get started and ask for this intro, I promised this student I was going to give them some love. Yadam Park, she was a Mason Career student that worked for me at Career Services. She was top-notch, 100%, did a great job. And so I said, I'm going to set the tone and give her the flowers now, to say the Mason Career students are doing big things, and I'm just so impressed. But before we get into this conversation, Dean Park, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yep, sure. So again, thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm very happy to talk about my experience as well as introduce Mason Korea for a lot of the folks who might be hearing about us for the first time, or may have heard about us but didn't really know what we were about. So I've actually now been the campus dean here at Mason Korea for a little under 2 years. So I started in August of 2024, which was actually our 10th anniversary of Mason Korea campus. So it's been a wonderful 2 years and looking forward to many more here. Before coming here, I was the dean at Seoulbridge International School of Business in Korea, which is a AACSB accredited business school that's associated with a Korean university, but it was a very international campus that I was at. 70% international students from 80 plus different countries, and I was excited to join Mason when I was afforded this opportunity, because I felt that a lot of the things that I'd been building on, sort of as a startup, because the former institution I was at was only about 15 years old. I was coming to this campus that was also relatively new, establishing itself, but also pivoting into a new kind of identity. And I felt that my experience at my former institution, as well as my training in law and business, really did equip me well for this particular role. So happy to share more as we continue this podcast.
Well, I did a little bit of stalking. I did a little bit of stalking on the LinkedIn, and you do have, a different, I'm not saying different career. I really haven't met many deans except the dean of the law school that probably had a law degree. But tell us a little bit about your origin story going to college. Did you grow up in the States? Did you grow up in Korea? How, the college journey?
Sure, thank you. And actually, I actually saw the new dean of Scalia Law, and I found out that he and I attended Harvard Law together for 1 year. I was there from 2000 to 2003, and he attended there from 2002. I actually never met him, but looking forward to connecting with him, and I'm sure you'll have him on your podcast as well. But I guess a bit about my background. I am a Korean American immigrant to the U.S., so I moved to the U.S. with my family when I was 7 years old. And from then on, I attended elementary, middle, high school, college, and law school all in the U.S., mostly in the West Coast. So my family originally moved to the Seattle area when I was 7. And, I grew up there. I also lived, like many Korean American immigrant families, moving around to different areas. My family, both my father and mother were pretty well educated in Korea, but then immigrants when they were coming to the U.S., at least in the time period that my family made the move in the late 1980s, it really was a little bit more of you need to start fully anew rather than having your career from Korea being recognized. Times are fully different now, but that's how it was back then. And I lived for some time in Los Angeles, Bakersfield, California, Sacramento, California area. Moved back to Seattle area to finish off my high school. And actually, again, because we were an immigrant family, we were in small business at the time, and I think I probably needed to grow up really quickly to support my parents who weren't quite as fluent with English. I needed to become bilingual very quickly and support them, in our livelihood. So that's kind of me growing up. I attended college at Pomona, so it's one of the Claremont colleges in Southern California. So very much a liberal arts environment, but in a very unique setting where there are 5 colleges in the same region, all sort of similar sizes, about 1,000, but coming together to form a nice larger community, not as large as George Mason, but sort of a 5,000 student community. And that's actually served me quite well in my role here, and I'll get to why. After that, I attended Harvard Law from 2000 to 2003. And then afterwards, rather than going straight to work in a law firm, that's kind of a obvious assumption that people will have. Graduate from Harvard Law, you'll go work at a law firm, and then you might go into academia, but you'll spend some time, working in the industry in that way. I actually was invited by a family friend who was in Korea right after I graduated from law school to try working in education for a little bit. And it really was going to be a little bit, say like 3 to 6 months. And I told the person and I won't name names or the firm or the partner, but I promised him that I'll come back within 3 months, or at most 6 months. I'm just going back to Korea to find my roots. I've been an immigrant in the U.S. for 17 years. I really haven't been back. And B, what I promised him was, I might be able to find some potential clients for our firm because the school that I was gonna spend a little bit of time at was really known to be one of the top actually high schools in Korea. And they were actually becoming, leaders in various industries. And I thought, hey, why not have them or their parents or the firms that their parents are working at be clients for us. So that was my pitch. I said, if I don't come back in 6 months, I know I am. This isn't even an if, but if I don't, then I'll buy you the most expensive dinner at the most expensive hotel in New York City. I unfortunately did not keep that promise. I didn't go back after 3 months or 6 months. And I sort of ignored that promise of buying the most expensive dinner.
Oh, you didn't buy the dinner yet either? You're still on the hook for the dinner?
Yeah, so sort of avoiding that. So I've been back to New York City a few times, but
as soon as you get off the plane. As soon as you get off the plane, they're gonna get that dinner.
That's right. So but unfortunately, that's one of the few promises I haven't been able to keep in my life. But I came to Korea, like I said, worked at a foreign language high school, which was deemed to be one of the top 2 or 3 in this country for training magnet students. Sending students to top colleges in the U.S. Loved education, and more so than the work that I had done as an associate, even as a summer associate at law firms in Boston. And actually thought, I actually felt like I could make, and maybe this is a little bit of the idealistic early to mid 20s me speaking, I could make a bigger difference in the Korean society, as well as helping to bridge some of the relations between Korea and the US as an educator, rather than working as probably a much higher paid attorney at a law firm in New York.
Purpose work.
So
I know your parents like, man, where's that law money? But I think that purpose work really drives you, and I think that's an amazing story. And also, I think it really resonates with me, just in general, of that roots. Thinking about culturally, like being able to give back to people that probably look like you and went through that experience. Probably is super powerful because I know you probably get so motivated when you work with these young Korean students that want to elevate their career. And I feel like that's probably good. So with that, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's still skills that you use from a growing school? I mean, I can just assume, contracts and the litigation, but what were some of those skills you're like, well, you know what? I am bringing this unique law background to education, even at the small school that you brought.
Sure. So certainly my law background, more so than probably just the knowing legal statutes or precedents. Actually, education in a law school, especially in a U.S. environment, top law schools like Scalia or Harvard, you don't get taught to memorize law. That's not what it's about. The whole 3 years is about thinking like an attorney, and a lot of that really is becoming a critical thinker that allows you to be not only critical but creative in terms of problem solving. That's what makes a good attorney. So actually, not only those sort of critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, creative problem solving skills, but for me, what I felt has helped me the most in my both academic career and my former background before coming here was dean at a business school as opposed to a law school. Uh, so it's helped me in that area as well. Really was the training that I got from the program on negotiation at Harvard Law and Harvard Business School. So that's kind of a transient, sort of a cross academic discipline program. And that's something that I actually enjoyed the most. I guess I can maybe share an interesting episode from my time at law school and then in the negotiation program. One of the things that I'm not sure if they do this still at Harvard Law, but during orientation, we sit in Douglas Hall, and one of the things that the faculty member providing an orientation to us say is, I'm going to say something that has been said for a long period of time at Harvard Law. Look to your left, look to your right. In 3 years, one of you won't be there. That's kind
That's
of
horrible.
right.
I hate that. Yeah, I want you to finish that story because I had that same one. I'll tell you.
Yeah. So actually, not true anymore because most people who go to law school do graduate now. But that's kind of the cliche thing that they used to say. And they he did clarify that it's not true anymore. But it shows that it might have been hard to get into law school, but it's harder to graduate and succeed. But the other thing he said was, okay, we're going to train you to think like a lawyer, talk like a lawyer, look like a lawyer, I guess. It's kind of what he said. But I have a warning for you. In a few months, it's going to be Thanksgiving break. Most of you are going to be going back home. Please leave all of that training here. Don't carry it on the flight with you, when you go back home. Because if you take that with you, you'll probably lose friends, potentially have a worse relationship with family members. You want to be a different person than what you're trained to be as a lawyer. And that made sense, because you don't want to be doing the Socratic method of why, and then twisting facts to see if that's really, rationally holding true and all sorts of that, those kinds of things. But interestingly, what I loved about the negotiation training that I received was it was actually the exact opposite. They said, you know what, if you carry the things that you learned from Harvard program on negotiation, being a more collaborative negotiator, and there's a whole host of skills, sometimes we call it the 7 elements of success in negotiation. But if you carry that home with you, then you actually become a better friend, better son, better daughter, better father, better brother. You become a better person in general in terms of relationships. Not only in business or law firms or in government or in politics, but you just become a better person in general. So I really took that to heart and made that a part of what shapes me as a business person, legal professional, as well as in academic circle, a colleague. And then as I rose to academic leadership position, what shapes my leadership style as well. So I would say that that's what's helped me the most from my legal training at law school. But it's something that I have the most pride in terms of, when I still have an opportunity to teach in the classroom, those skills, imparting those skills to students, as well as using that as part of my leadership style when I deal with colleagues here.
Well, I was thinking we had that like when I went to high school. I went to this really large high school, and they said, "Okay, everyone in the back 2 rows stand up." and they said that whole two back rows is not going to graduate. I was like,
Wow.
that's not motivational.
Yeah.
And then it happened, right? I went to Mount Vernon. I was like, that's a crazy line. So I was like, I never use that line. I'd be like, yo, we all get in, we all gonna go out. That's my mindset. Like, but
Right.
to that point of the negotiation, I did actually participate in a leadership course, and
Mm,
one of the modules was leadership. And
mm,
one of the things he talked about was uh, for negotiation. One of the modules negotiation was that in true negotiation, it's not always like, what can I gain? It's like, how can I serve someone else and get what they want while still getting what I want? But it's more so like you're going at it with the compromising thought about the other person, which
yeah.
I think in your sense is like a better friend. Like, how can I give more to my friend while still getting something out of it? But I'm really focusing on the giving.
Mm.
And a lot of people don't think about that with negotiation. So I thought that was a great thing, because when you think about it, you're like, how can I get this person to be happy while I'm still like getting something for myself? And that's negotiation, right? Rather than self-fulfilling. If you go at it with the other person, you're actually a better negotiator.
Absolutely. Actually, you hit kind of the most important of the elements out of the 7 elements in our program on negotiation. So we call them, a few of them, it's called interests. So looking at my interests and their interests, but also potentially third parties that are not directly involved here that may have an interest in what's happening. So in the end, we do need to reach I don't even want to call it a compromise, but find a solution that both of us will be happy with. And I'm actually happy to say that this is something that works with lawyers, and it's something that works with training lawyers, because it's not relying upon benevolence or altruism. It's not asking you to, love your neighbor as
So
much
like
as yourself.
martyrdom and sacrifice everything, right? Yeah.
Right. It's actually applicable even if you're the most selfish person in the world, because even if you only want to benefit yourself and you're only interested in your benefit or your client's benefit, you'll only reach the best result for yourself or for your client if you find a solution that not only I am happy about, but my counterpart could also be maybe not as happy as I am, but would also be pleased with as well. So that's
Yeah.
that's actually looking at sort of the both sides, my interests as well as their interests. What are they interested in? How can I fill their interests while fulfilling my interests? And then another element is options. How can I be creative, brainstorm with them to come up with a solution that isn't necessarily competing, but something that's collaborative and really works to fulfill both of our interests. So yeah, exactly what you said. It's kind of different from our prototypical, stereotypical vision of what a negotiation is. Two sides facing each other, zero sum game. However much I gain, you lose, and so forth. Um, you know, I I think especially in the current political and sometimes economic climate, we're needing to be reminded that there are methods of negotiation and agreements between counterparts, even if you're in a competing relationship, where you can find ways to build a greater pie, to make both of you better off, rather than needing to be so cutthroat and competitive.
Yeah, I love it. Now, you said small, young institution before Mason. Think about like what was the attraction? I mean, and maybe the origin story to that. Was it a connection? Was it I'm ready for the next step? Because you said you was already a dean, is that correct?
Correct.
So, but this is a dean. I would say different, typical, because like you were a dean of a business school, but this now being a dean of a satellite campus means a little bit of all the disciplines. So, talk
Absolutely.
a little bit about that. That what was attractive, and two, that adjustment to now you have to serve multiple disciplines as the dean of a satellite campus.
Yep. So absolutely. So, as I said, if I was someone who was more interested in security and predictability, I probably wouldn't have come into academia in the first place. I would have, worked at the law firm and, made a career there. So I've always been interested in either starting or building or scaling up new programs. So, when I first came to Korea, I walked into an environment where I was building a study abroad program for highly gifted students. And,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I first started receiving media reports in Korea. I wrote a book on those kinds of journeys. Um, And then, after that, I started a Korea Debate Association, which for the first time started sending students to the World Championships, the Olympics of debate. So built up that program, and now debate's actually a very strong part of all curricula in Korean public education. When I went to the business school before, as I said, it was only a year and a half old, when I joined. I was there for 14 years. The school grew from around 100 students to about 1,200 students, fully AACSB accredited, one of the top international business schools, at least in Asia. So when I saw this opportunity at Mason Korea, I thought this was a unique institution with a huge amount of potential for societal impact, both at a local scale, but also at a global scale, spanning two borders, alliance between the U.S. And Republic of Korea. And as you said, it was a new challenge because it really is like a pseudo president position, in that you're not just overseeing one discipline. You do need to oversee all of the disciplines that are represented here on campus. So we have 6 undergraduate majors as well as 2 graduate programs, but also a bunch of faculty from all the different disciplines that make up the Mason core as well. So I do need to oversee all of these. So that was a unique challenge, as well as I said, making a large societal impact in a strategic region for Korea. That's also potentially connecting with the US. And by overseeing this international campus here in Korea, make a large difference for George Mason University as a whole. And I'll talk a little bit about how I see the role of Mason Korea. But one, I guess, wording correction that I oftentimes make is I don't view ourselves as a branch campus or a satellite campus.
Yes.
In fact, President Washington frequently talks about George Mason University having 4 campuses. 3 are in Virginia, 1 overseas in Korea. So we also see ourselves as a campus of George Mason University, just like any of the 3, the Fairfax, Manassas, and Arlington campus in the U.S. We enjoy the same exact identity, same exact curriculum, same quality, etc. But the thing that I do feel that makes us unique, and is something that also drew me to this position, and want to develop this campus in ways that are distinct than what we see in the U.S. is I don't want to see our campus as a smaller, potentially lesser version of George Mason in the U.S. I do want us to be a unique Korean flavored campus that we have here. Actually, I like to quote President Washington because he's a fast food enthusiast, and sometimes he refers to fast food analogies when making points. He talks about how when he goes to McDonald's or KFC in different countries, they taste different. You're not going to have the same exact McDonald's in Tokyo or in Seoul. Just like that, while we are unmistakably Mason, we maintain that same George Mason spirit here. We should have a different flavor being here in Korea. We should have slightly different programs, slightly different class structure or class elements. You definitely should have different experiential learning opportunities by being here. For example, we established an honors college on this campus, which is going to have different Asian experiences, being able to visit a number of our partners in nearby regions, which isn't going to be afforded when you're just studying in the US. And we'll lean into the K-wave and the popularity of K-pop and K-media, all of those things, K-culture, K-foods, K-beauty, all of those things, by the fact that we are actually located here in Korea. So in that way, it was exciting in terms of an opportunity for me. And as a campus and the role itself, I do feel is going to be something different. And the excitement of building the campus in this way is something that will be exciting not only for me, but hopefully for George Mason University as well.
I love that because I did study abroad one time in undergrad in China, and I did go to McDonald's in China, and then the arches are the same, right? And the logo is the same, but then they had different things on the menu.
That's right.
And so I think about that. It's like brand alignment. Like you have the logo, like I see in your desk, and the logo and all that, but just different things on the menu. But it's still McDonald's, and I like that. So you do feel that Mason spirit when you, what was some of your like I have to do this to understand Mason when you started? Did you feel like I might have missed your American tour? Did you feel like you had to go to the Fairfax campus, walk around to absorb that, to bring that back to Korea? What was talk a little bit about how
Sure.
you learned a little bit about that Mason spirit for yourself to bring that to the Mason Korea campus.
Yeah, so absolutely. So of course, a part of my hiring process was doing an on-campus interview at Fairfax as well as in Korea. So pretty serious series of interviews and meetings. Meeting with all of the leadership, deans, faculty members that are represented here in Mason, Korea. Definitely got a tour, both walking and on the golf cart. Right outside of Merton Hall. So really immersing myself in the Fairfax environment. So certainly, that was a part of it. Of course, I did my homework, read all of the material on the website, as well as President Washington's strategic document.
Yeah.
What he wanted Mason to be. Really understanding what altogether different actually would mean, but also our slogan here is two nations, one Mason. So, what does
Okay.
that stand for here in Korea as well? So certainly that was a part of it. Also part of that was understanding how the first 10 years of George Mason in Korea had gone. You know, uh,
Okay. Yes.
Obviously wasn't the easiest journey. I very much praise the folks who were there when they made that difficult decision for a state university in Virginia to establish a branch in Korea, and really buy into that, the investment, as well as the buy-in that was needed from the six schools that are represented here, all of the six programs that are represented here. So all of that. But it did go through some turmoil in the first 10 years. And one thing that I did notice when I was coming in was this campus had pretty much been established as a teaching campus and almost as sort of a preparatory campus. So 3 years in Korea, preparing you for that final year in Fairfax to complete your
Yeah.
degree.
The what's it? Well, before the 1-to-1 program, right? I think that's what it is now, right?
No,
One to
it's
one,
still
like you do.
no, it's
Yeah. Go
still
ahead.
3 years in Korea, 1 year in the US. Although we're looking to make
Yeah.
the timing of when you spend that 1 year in the US a little bit more comfortable. The 1-to-1 is actually in China. So that's
Oh, that's right. Okay, I was getting confused because I do remember like okay, I remember there was one thing where so that's the China one, but the Mason Korea, like I know for sure the Mason Korea students need to not need but do 1 year, but you want to make yes, I'm tracking
correct.
now.
But I actually like the China 1-to-1 program because the first year in China, 2 years in the US, and then 1 year back in China is actually something that's very good at equipping students to get that Mason spirit very early on, rather than wait until later. But then for students who want to be employed in China, they should be back for at least a year so that they get internships
Yes.
and so forth.
Yeah.
So I am, it is one of the things that we're looking at to make our student journeys a little bit more flexible. To see if we can get them that Fairfax experience a bit earlier, especially for folks who do need to come back to Korea and get a job. We want them to go earlier. Of course, folks who want to find internships and jobs in the U.S., they should spend their final year,
Yeah.
if not longer, in the U.S. But in any case, what I didn't want to happen on this campus was I didn't want us to be sort of an incomplete educational institution where we're only sort of a preparatory institute for going to the US. That's a
Yeah.
little bit, demeaning or degrading for a lot of the work that's
Yes.
being done here. And a part of that is, what, we're an R1 rated institution, and the campus here, with Korea being so serious about research, we should also be functioning and behaving
Yeah.
like an R1 institution here as well, which means we're not just a teaching institution, but doing meaningful research, connecting with government and industries significantly. So that's something that I've really tried to work on in my past 2 years. So if the first 10 years was really establishing ourselves, being stable in this new environment, maintaining our Mason identity, and not just becoming another Korean university that just has the borrowing of the name of Mason. The next step forward is okay. We're strong strongly established in this community. Now let's make ourselves really connect with both the research, government, and the industry in this region, connecting more with the home campus on all of these initiatives. And for me, that's what actually makes the Mason Korea campus more Mason as well. Because if you think about it, George Mason isn't just an ivory tower education providing, research providing institution. It is such a critical core part of the Northern Virginia community. And that's what made it larger than what was its parent institution, UVA, because it built in so much into the community. We need to do something similar here with both Incheon and Korea, be that critical instrument in terms of bridging into government and industries. And uniquely, something that only we can do, unlike other Korean universities, is being that bridge between Korea and the US in a very meaningful manner, and doing it to not just I don't want to demean other places in the US. Every place in the US is wonderful, but the capital of the United States is in Washington, D.C., right next to us. And that's, again, a unique connection that we can provide. So that's the move for us moving forward. And I think it is what shapes us into a unique institution in this region, but also a special tool that George Mason University has in its arsenal to become a world-class brand.
Well, I mean, I follow y'all on LinkedIn, and I see like you talking about that local infrastructure. You're doing a lot of bit connections with business, like memorandums of understanding what local business is in Korea. So it's like you're getting those names out there, and you're really connecting with the local officials and local businesses in Korea. Is like the reputation in the local area really building up? Like, I would assume that George Mason is not like the Harvards. Everyone in the world knows the Harvards. Everyone in the world knows the Oxfords. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone in the world knows the UVAs, right? But I'd be beg to differ. Like, people are like, George Mason, what is that? Like, is that some of the things that you still have to work on?
So again, I'll be honest. We're not a big name in Korea yet, and a part of that's our size, and I'll get into that a little bit. But we're still viewed as not a normal college, but a U.S. foreign institution here, which naturally sort of shrinks the exposure that we have, in both academic, industry, and government circles. That said, we are becoming much more recognized, especially in this area, as one of the most active in terms of community connections, really helping local businesses, especially tech startups, connecting them to Virginia. That's something that we focused on, building our branch of the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship with the business school. But we are developing a little bit of a reputation as a highly reputable, selective, academically rigorous institution, which is a little bit of a different slant than our home institution. And it's I think both are strong tracks. So obviously George Mason, I think we pride ourselves as being high access, high outcome. We don't make the barrier of entry for a college education very high, especially for state of Virginia. But we pride ourselves in that we may not be extremely selective for getting students in, but once you're in, we take care of you, and you end up being paid the most in Virginia, pretty much. That's objectively. In Korea, we can't quite do that because the Ministry of Education here limits our intake to 300 students per year. So we are.
You have a quota, or not a quota, a cap. You have a cap, yeah.
Correct. So we're capped in size, but that does make us. We have to be selective, when we.
So it makes it competitive. It makes it allowed, yeah.
So we are a highly competitive institution. So in that way, the reputation ends up being a little bit different here, compared to what it is in the U.S. In the U.S.
It kind of makes sense now because like I said, your dom came with it, and as a young lady, she was on it. But now I'm assuming because she's it's a selective school, she's a top-notch Korean student that did her thing. So
that's right.
I think that works, and that is awesome. Now it kind of puts the contextualizes. Wow, some of the Mason Korea students, these are the top Korean.
That's correct.
Because it's a selective school. these are some of the top students academically in Korea that are participating in Mason Korea
Right.
there. And when they come over to the United States, they're doing really well. And I would assume, but also understand that they're really hitting the classes and doing really well academically here in the Fairfax campus. So now that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
kind of correlates that.
Right. And I can put this in, statistical figures just to, show where we're at. Obviously, again, because we're a fully American school and not all students in Korea are thinking about us or know about us, we are going to be limited in terms of applicants. But even based on the applicants versus enrollment, we are at about, admissions rate is at about 30%.
Yes, that's
So
competitive.
pretty
Wow, that's hard.
competitive. Actually,
Yes.
at the end of this year, this cycle is actually looking even more competitive. So we'll probably be closer to 20% admissions rate, which is actually pretty top notch in terms of
Wow, that's
U.S.
really hard.
standards. So again, we're happy to be accepting these very, very highly qualified students into these fields. And the only area where they might have a disadvantage compared to the students admitted in Fairfax would be for a lot of them, their first language isn't English.
Yes.
So it's a
Yep.
second or a foreign language. But it doesn't mean that they are academically or in any other way less
No.
qualified. Probably in many cases, they may have had a higher threshold to get into George Mason. So, we're
Yeah.
happy to add that element to George Mason. And, actually, in terms of building a global brand or an international brand, that's not bad, right? So
No.
in our American community, we want to serve that community, but internationally, being viewed as a selective, elite academic institution that helps build our name as the school that you want to partner with. If you're let's say a top 5 school in a particular country and you're looking at a partner in the U.S., this is the kind of school that you want to partner with.
I love that. Like comparably, I'm not very good at geography, so you might have to be patient with me. But that we get like, the in-state, we get a lot of people from the state of Virginia. For the region in which you're in, a lot of the Mason Korea students live near Icheon, or are they from all over Korea? What's that kind of demographic looking like? Like, are
All
they
over.
coming from all over Korea? Korea?
It really is all over Korea,
Okay.
and increasingly internationally, especially from Asian countries. And even though, and I'll add a little bit of context to this, after going over sort of the demographics. But again, all over Korea, I would say the highest number of population would be from Seoul, because that's where
Yeah.
much of the top students in Korea reside. Even if they weren't born there, a lot of their families moved there because the
Hmm.
educational environment is stronger. And then it's also students who have to be strong enough in English to be able to study here. So we're drawing a lot from international schools, magnet
Yeah.
schools, who
Yeah.
train sort of the more gifted students. So that's where we get a lot of our Korean students from. Internationally, we are also starting to build, especially in East Asia, nearby in China, but also from countries like Vietnam, Mongolia, Philippines, and so forth. We're starting to get some really strong students from there, and we're actually making a concerted effort from India as well. Concerted effort, especially because unfortunately, American borders have become harder to get into for some of the international students. So we're actually reaping some of the advantages. As a we're an attractive destination in our own right, but for folks who want that American education, they can come here and spend that year in the US. It does become easier to get into the US once you're in Korea for a certain period of time from immigration perspective. So that's one thing that we do. Um, the the point I wanted to make in terms of sort of the demographics is we're actually not the most affordable institution in Korea. So the tuition
It's
rate
another it's, an, it's
here,
another nuance difference between that. Right. Yeah.
right? The tuition here is 20,000 USD, which is a little bit higher than in-state tuition rates in Virginia, but about half the out of state tuition or international tuition rates for George Mason. But as context, this is more than twice the amount students pay for Korean universities, because Korean university tuition rates are much lower than in the US. And then because of the USD versus Korean won exchange rates are extremely in favor of USD, with Korean won being very weak at this time. We're actually a pretty expensive school to attend, both in the context of Korea and in Asia. So what it does mean is, we end up being selective in that way as well. Not all our families can afford us. And unfortunately, because we're a foreign institution, national scholarships from the Korean government aren't applied to students who come to our institution. So, we try our best to set aside tuition and other funding and, gifts that we give from our donors for scholarship, but it's nothing like what George Mason can offer in Virginia. So as a result, again, that's sort of building us into building us into a little bit of a different identity here in Korea and internationally as well. But like I said, in terms of global rankings and global reputation building and partnership building, finding the best types of partners internationally, this isn't a bad dual identity for George Mason to have in the global sphere.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think, like I said, I definitely could tell this partnership is one giving us a global landscape, helping both countries with that social mobility, for our graduates. And I really think that just building this gateway of a global world, we're going to be a global world. The world is opening up. And so having this bridge, is pretty awesome. I know maybe in the future we'll have like a teleporter where you could just teleport to each campus or take a shuttle or a space shuttle and just
That's
link
right.
to each other, and so we can go visit more often. But I think it's just
That's right. I visit Fairfax at least 3 to 4 times a year. And
okay.
we have direct flights. Unfortunately, it's about 13 to 14, 15
Yeah,
hours on that flight. So it's not the easiest journey in the world, but you know what? It's less than a day, pretty much, for you to get here. And for Mason students, you can pay pretty much exactly the same tuition, in-state tuition, if you're from Virginia, to spend your time in Korea. And the cost of living here being much cheaper, you actually end up experiencing the same quality of education in this unique cultural format at a lower cost, actually, than if you were living in Fairfax. So I really do encourage all Mason students to take advantage of this very special opportunity.
this
Of course,
bridge. Yeah,
you can spend your time in Europe or South America, wherever you might be interested in. But this truly is a unique opportunity, only available for Mason students, and I hope everyone does take advantage of this opportunity that they have.
all right. Well, we're gonna go to the segment of the show called Shot for Shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first, or I go first?
Okay. So, all right. Why don't you ask first?
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So, okay. Uh, sports. Are you still an avid American sports watcher? And how are you keeping up with American sports over there in Korea? You have to get up at like 5 a.m. to watch your favorite sports. How do you do that if you are a fan of American sports?
I am a fan of American sports. I follow all 4 of the major American sports. So especially, I am a big fan of baseball. Baseball is big
Yeah.
in Korea as well as in the U.S. And as I said, I'm someone who lived mostly on the West Coast. So because of when I started following sports when I was a little younger, I follow pretty much Seattle and Los
Yeah.
Angeles teams. So
Oh, dang,
Seattle.
you love the you got the Dodgers, man. They was doing
That's right.
great. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was dreaming of seeing the Seattle Mariners and the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series until the meltdown for the Mariners. That's a heartbreak, but I'm happy about the Mariners. The team that I'm following in Korea is unfortunately more like the Seattle Mariners identity, sort of perennial losers or almost getting to the top but losing.
Yeah.
But so that's kind of my favorite sport. NFL, Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl. That was another happy moment for me. Um, uh, in basketball, Los Angeles Lakers, and it used to be the Seattle Sonics, but
Yeah.
being in Oklahoma, I hate them, unfortunately, because
Yes.
they
Yeah.
stole our
Yes.
team. But Lakers being my team. Hockey, I still actually do follow a little bit. Los
Yeah.
Angeles Kings as well as the Ducks. But obviously, after coming to Mason, I follow the Patriots in basketball. unfortunately, we don't have a football team. But one thing that I am actually looking to do is bring the baseball team to
Yes.
Korea next year, because baseball is so big here. And
Yeah.
I'll be connecting the baseball team. This is being planned. I don't want to jinx it, but if they do end up making it, connecting them to both colleges as well as high schools that are strong in baseball. So we end up having a nice recruiting pipeline of Korean high school players going to
Yes.
Mason. So that's a dream of mine, and also getting them on a TV show that I have in mind. But that's kind of my sports thing. Longer answer
So
to
then,
your
so
question.
no, I love it. And so just to watch, you have to like get up really late. How do you get to consume it still?
Yep.
With the time
So
difference.
So you know what? For when we do make it to like the World Series or Super Bowl, I will stay up and watch it.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah.
but but I can't do that every day. So uh, it's mostly looking at the scoreboards and
Big.
reading the
Yeah.
articles and so forth.
I love it. I love it. All right. What's your question for me?
All right. So actually, my first question actually was going to be about sports. Uh, what do you think about the prospects of both our basketball and baseball teams coming up this year?
Well, I try to go as many basketball games as I can, both men and women's. I think for local sports, the Mason basketball games are nothing like there's nothing like it because one, it's in the community. Two, like I remember when my kids were little, I could take them, and if they didn't want to, they start acting up. I didn't waste no money, right? It was so easy and cheap to go to, and so that was the way introduced my kids to watching, college level sports, was taking them to the Mason basketball games, and the Green Machine is just like no other. That's I think it's the best band in the land, and so I think I was at the A10 game, not last year, the year before, where we lost to VCU by 3. And I think just Tony Skinn, he's a phenomenal coach. I think last year we could have done a little bit better. We started off really hot, and I'm just hoping that we win the A10 and we make it to the big tourney again. I think that will be a success, right? Like like, oh, Final Four again or whatever. No, that's not it. But to me, I think a successful Mason run would be just getting to the NCAA tournament and just at least winning 2 or 3 games. That would be a success. Postseason accolades, because we're there. And I think with this transfer portal, I think basketball is really different, right? Like
Right.
no one stays, so now it's like year by
No,
year
the NIL, yeah.
with all the NIL stuff. So hopefully, I think we're on the up and up. I think we're ahead of the curve in regards to NIL and how we take it seriously. I know Tony Skinn has a great culture. He's got them, built, Mason pressure, and he got the culture, what they wear the chain. So the team has a culture and a vibe. And then Vanessa Blair, she's an amazing women's coach. So I think that baseball, I need to watch it a little bit more. I randomly went to A10 baseball game like 2 or 3 weeks ago just because it was, affordable, and so that's one thing I've always said. I have a spreadsheet. I was like, I want to show love, not just to the basketball team. I want to go see all the different sports. So I make sure I go check out the wrestling, the volleyball, like just show love to all the sports at Mason, because sometimes randomly I'll have students that play the other sports too, and that makes me really more engaged because I'm like, oh, I know that kid, right? So yeah, I think we'll be great. I think it's just like there's no reason why we can't have the talent of other schools. We're in the
That's right.
DMV. We have so much local talent, and maybe now we'll have Korean talent too.
That's right.
But I'm a hometown guy, so I think it's also great to like root for the local area. Like it gives me like local pride, like not just Mason, but like Northern Virginia pride when I root for Mason in sports. So yeah.
All
Well,
right.
this has been a great podcast. This is the part of the show called Shout Outs and Plugs. You get to show love to anyone you want to show love to. And then plugs, these are resources I'll put in the show notes, obviously, like the Mason Korea website and all these different things. But shout outs and plugs.
All right. So, firstly, I do want to say welcome to Mason Korea to Dr. Jason Kinzer. So he'll actually be joining us as an associate dean for faculty and academic affairs next month. So a long time, 30 plus years of service at George Mason in Fairfax, and he'll be joining us as one of the leadership. So I do want to say that for the faculty at the Fairfax end. Secondly, I do want to shout out to the debate team here at George Mason. So we have a Mason Korea Debate Society that's been formed, been performing exceedingly well in a number of tournaments despite being a new team here. And they'll also be hosting a number of fundraising debate camps and events for students. So, good luck with your tournaments, especially when you go to tough tournaments like the Australs. That's the Australia, New Zealand, all of Asia getting together to compete together. Good luck there, and good luck with all of your fundraising efforts.
Well, that's excellent. I think it's great. I gotta check it out because I know the debate has like been a historic program at Mason too, the Fairfax campus. So the fact that y'all doing it in Korea is really, once again, aligned with that brand. If we're gonna be the top debate, we're gonna be the top debate team in both places. I love that.
That's right.
Mason Nation, thank you so much for listening to this episode. As you know, every episode is dedicated to to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch, and the anti-hunger fund that he has. So please consider supporting that. Also, if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider submitting the Pats for Patriots to share kindness with anyone in the Mason Nation. Just a way to show love. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Like, subscribe, give it a review to elevate the voices of this podcast. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.